to make you a presenter.
Ah, okay. Yes, very good. Thank you so much. Let's see here. Okay. And everyone should be able to see my big splash screen at this point, I hope.
Yes, we do now.
Okay, good. So we'll go through it because I want to make sure that I am on time and get everyone where they need to be for the rest of this conference, because that is very important. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how threat actors choose the things that they choose to do. Where do they start? Why are they doing this? What are you doing? And I'll just start up front by saying, I don't necessarily know these answers. It's all guesses. But what's really cool about the guesses that we have is that we can use data to kind of determine what these galaxy brains are thinking. So the chicken is very important. Keep the chicken in mind for later. My name is Sherrod DeGrippo. I'm the Senior Director of Threat Research and Detection at Proofpoint, which means if you have a Proofpoint product, you're probably dealing with work from myself and my team every day. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. My favorite protocol is DNS, especially today. Yesterday was a real wild ride of a Patch Tuesday, and it keeps getting wilder. I have a massive screenshot collection, some of which I will share with you today. Please do add me on Twitter. I really only talk about InfoSec. It's pretty one note. So what are these guys thinking? Why are they doing this? Why did they choose me? Why did they choose you? Why did they choose the people in your organization that they're targeting? And maybe how do we better protect against them? So take out a piece of paper or open a text editor of your choice. I will not suggest what text editor you use. I don't want to start a fight. So we're going to write down some answers to these questions, and then at the end, kind of evaluate the choices that we made before we went through the realities of what's happening out there. So we're going to do an email attack. Write down who you would target. It can be any person in the world. They must be living, and they must have access to email some point regularly, so every day or even every couple of days. Who are you targeting? Who would you pretend to be? So we have an incredible arsenal of toolkits to spoof email from, reply to, whatever you want. You can be anybody that you can possibly think of, whether that's an individual human name, an alias, a catch-all email. It could be just a title, anything you want. So who are you targeting? Who are you pretending to be? What's your payload? So you can do any kind of malware. Think of any kind of malware that you want: ransomware, keylogger, information stealer, banking Trojan. Your payload could be a Credfish landing page. You could just have fraud be part of your payload. Think about what you're going to use as your payload. What does your email body say? So this is where you're crafting an idea of what your social engineering lore is going to say. And then at the end, what are you trying to achieve? What is your success criteria? Is it a bunch of data that you then use, sell, ransom? How do you know when to stop? How many yachts would be equivalent to a successful operation for you floating in the Black Sea? Just think about what you're trying to get at the end and sort of go through quickly and write down your answers to these questions. And then we'll compare your answers to the threat actor's actual activity at the end. So let's talk quickly about the landscape and the vectors that we're looking at. Email is still the #1 threat vector. I'm happy to go head to head with anyone on that one. In my role, I look at about 5 billion emails a day, not personally. About 1 billion of those are actually put through the targeted protection capabilities. So we're examining about 1 billion closely. 80% of that 5 billion is spam. And when I say spam, I'm not referring to threat. I'm referring to unsolicited commercial email that's unwanted. So your random Viagra advertisements, your adult friend finder and dating ads. A lot of this stuff you probably never see because spam solutions, both for consumer and in the enterprise, have gotten so good that seeing spam is a bit of an event for somebody. They say, wow, I saw spam, that's weird. What you'll probably see more actually are things like email fraud. So I have a business proposal for you. You inherited a bunch of money. The UN is trying to give you some award that you have won. Those tend to be a little bit harder to block than spam. But for the most part, when I say spam, I mean spam, not threat. So we're looking at data when I'm talking that's primarily within large enterprise, business email, government email, NGOs, think the Fortune 1000 and large government enterprise worldwide, not just US. So typically with email, you have a couple of choices of how you're going to weaponize that. You can do it with the URL, so a URL in the body. You can do it as an attachment. You can do BEC and pure social engineering, which we're seeing a huge increase in over the past couple of years. Or you can put together a combination of all of these things, such as an attachment that contains a URL that when the attachment is opened, they can click on the URL, computer. So what are people typically choosing? What are the threat actors looking at? This is a chart showing malicious email from May to about the end of June. The dark blue bars are malicious URLs. The light blue bars are malicious attachments. I've been watching this back and forth for 5 years, and every couple of years, every 6 to 9 months, these bars change, and suddenly attachments are more popular and then URLs are more popular. One of the reasons that URLs are so popular these days is that you can generate a unique URL for every person that you send a message to. Even if you're doing 30, 50, 100, 500,000 messages in a day, if you've got the right infrastructure, you can give a unique URL every time. What's great about a unique URL? It's incredible. It can do tracking on who you sent it to, can give you full metrics about the click, and it's harder to block 100,000 unique URLs in something like a web gateway when there's a SOC team constantly playing catch up trying to block all this stuff. So URLs are really, really popular right now. So attachment volume and attachments that contain URLs, we look at hundreds of file extensions. I'm sure you're aware that there's an incredible amount of file extensions that can be used out there. This is just a selection of a few, and you can see that PDF is killing it. PDF is really, really popular for delivering malicious payloads. But when you look across this graph for basically the month of June, you see 4 just drops, big old drops in traffic, regardless of the file type. Does anybody know what those are? Those are weekends. So weekends and holidays, traffic declines. And the reason for that is threat actors like to get their email into the box when the person is sitting in front of that computer. Every second that goes in between the email hitting the inbox and the target clicking on that email is a risk that that email will not be opened or won't be successful. There's a variety of reasons that could happen, but the threat actor knows that from the time that email is in that inbox to the time they click needs to be as short as possible. Things like infrastructure getting taken down, things like new IDS signatures being deployed and stopping the traffic from the click, things like trap or O365 or even specialized PowerShell scripts that can go into a victim's email box and automatically rip out things that are found to be malicious later. So if someone's on vacation, if it's a holiday, if they're not in the office, the threat actor does not want that email dropping in the box. And in terms of time of day, we see the threat actors roll their campaigns across the landscape in a follow the sun model, meaning they start in the Far East and then they start hitting as business hours and those employees start waking up, they start hitting Asia, Europe, and then the Americas over into the next day. So we generally see the highest amount of malicious traffic around 10 a.m. local for wherever that threat actor is happening to target. So what are they targeting them with? We see it all. Remote access Trojans, information stealers, things that generate logs, keyloggers, banking Trojans, botnets. Downloaders are really, really popular lately. They're modular, and they allow the threat actor to get an understanding of what exactly that machine is used for. A lot of the downloaders have the ability to profile the machine, understand default operating system, default browser, look at the browser history, and then a threat actor can make a decision. Oh, this machine is most likely to have a ransom paid, or this machine is most likely to have somebody using it who visits a bank account. This machine is really likely to have a lot of sensitive information that I want to steal. So it gives them the opportunity to customize and match up the payload based on what they think will be most advantageous for them. which is why we see downloaders as first stage payloads in huge, huge volumes. We also check geographies. Pretty much every country you can think of, but especially the European countries in North America, they really get a large share of it because they've got a lot of business going on. We also see a lot of matching to the country with language and geofencing and banks. So for example, if you want to steal money from a bank, banks are localized, right? So if you live in France, you probably have a French bank, not a German bank or an American bank or a Canadian bank, you have a French bank. So you would send somebody in France an email that has French, that maybe has branding of a French bank, and that is restricted by the IP address to only IPs that are originating in the net blocks that are assigned to France. So if you start mismatching those, for example, you send a German language to somebody in Mexico and you reference a Scottish bank, you're just not going to have the success rate that you would have when you matched all those up nicely. We track brands as well. DHL, UPS, and FedEx, wow, they're very popular. Shipping notices and invoices are really, really common. As much as COVID-19 and coronavirus has been used for social engineering, DHL, UPS, and FedEx are tried and true, been around forever. The new players, World Health Organization, CDC, and Red Cross. Those are the brands that we've seen spoofed over the past 6 months the most. But DHL, UPS, and FedEx, especially FedEx, is absolutely massive. People will click on a FedEx email. So let's talk about some threat examples. And I want to start with travel and hotel. And the reason I like this one is because it's a little bit different than you might think when you think of email attacks. This one is actually one that is going into large group mailboxes. So those alias mailboxes like customer service, complaints, abuse departments, help desks, all of these things where there's a shared mailbox. And the people on the other end of that shared mailbox are charged as their job with replying to those emails. So there's this special incentive for those targets to interact with the threat actor and with what they've sent. There's a rat called Revenge Rat, pretty popular. We still see it all the time. We've seen it many times in the past couple of years. It's really popular. This campaign was 68 messages. 54 of those messages went to the hospitality and travel vertical, and they were all targeting reservations aliases, giving the threat actor remote access to that machine. So let me show you what the actual macro looks like. This leveraged malicious macros with sending to these particular email addresses. So the email or the macro on the right, it's a Word document, and it has the image on the right, and it's a hotel folio. So all of you can read that hotel folio really easily right now. So the threat actor has made a decision. Let's get inside their galaxy brain. Why did they do this? They thought, if I send this kind of blurry receipt image and I accompany it with a complaint about how angry I am, and I send it to these hotel reservation help desks, they're more likely to click in deeper, or they're more likely to do whatever it takes to pull down the payload that I'm referring to, because they can't see this well. So it's a pretty smart and calculated move on this threat actor's part to use a campaign that leverages this idea of, well, they can't see this, so they're going to keep clicking until they get there. And you can see it really is focusing on that concept of reservations, and it's sending it specifically to hotel brands. So let's talk about air travel a little bit. This one was also sent to hotel groups. It was about 400 messages, and they were all sent to people that worked in hotels. And you can see the titles, some of the titles on the left, like service agent, director of sales, senior accountant, all of them were based in Cairo, and they received this fake Emirates Airlines coronavirus update, which is talking about rebooking tickets, how to get your money back, what you have to do, all of these things. And you can see the attachment is coronavirus transmission, and it appears to come from Emirates Egypt at e.emiratesagents.com. So that's where, when we were thinking about who are you going to be, this threat actor decided that they were going to be Emirates Egypt. And they sent this out to people in hotels who were located in the Middle East, which is the primary region that this airline serves. And when you click through this, it actually uses equation editor, which I don't want to get into now, but later Google equation editor exploits, they're fantastic. This particular macro was made by LCG Kit, and that's just a kit that makes malicious macros. It's available. You can go download it now if you have a need to make malicious macros in your life. But I think this is a pretty interesting one, and it had a triple payload flow: Remcos, Ave Maria, and LimeRat. Basically, remote access, backdoor capabilities across the spectrum. So let's talk about another rat, Remcos. So if you've ever worked in email marketing or web design, there's this concept of A/B testing, where you create one type of package and you design it, you code it up, and you send it out to a certain population. And then you do another one and you send it out to a different population and you see which one performs best. So essentially you're just testing out two different things. That's what this actor did in this campaign. So the first one, our A subject, was, "Dear customer, your package has reached our warehouse. You need to come pick it up. It claims to be from DHL support. And if you want to know where the warehouse is, or if you want the label number, you have to look at the enclosed files. So you need to click and open up this remote access Trojan in order to supposedly see what your package is that you're waiting on." So that's one way to go about it. This was about 500 messages, and this went to about 250 recipients. What was the other test? So the other lure was, "My attention was called that a customer was assaulted. Subject, sexual harassment report. I received the video of this sexual assault, and I have attached this sexual assault video to the email." So now we're really getting into the inner workings of what this threat actor thinks is going to go right for them. Are they going to get more clicks on their DHL package lure? Or are they going to get more clicks on the sexual harassment video? That's the question that they have to kind of constantly understand. Now, in our situation, clicking doesn't matter because these are all blocked. But in situations where they're not blocked, the threat actor is then looking to see which one performed best, and then will continue to refine their campaigns and their social engineering lures down until they get one that they feel is at maximum success and is giving them the biggest payout for their work. So ransomware is really fun. Ransomware is just really not big in email anymore. Ever since Locky kind of dropped off 2 years ago, we just haven't seen the volumes of ransomware in email that we saw in the past. I attribute that likely to the fact that downloaders are more common and more flexible. So the threat actors are sending downloaders as a first stage payload. And once the downloader has been delivered via email and sitting on that machine, they make a decision later of if they're going to send ransomware or not. In this case, NemT does come via email, and it came via a bit.ly URL. If there's one thing that I hate more than I hate email, it's URL shorteners. Google shut theirs down about 1.5 years ago. URL shorteners are not helping our lives. They're trouble. Another thing that NemT likes to do, and many malware actors like to do this, they'll actually zip up the file and password protect it with a really simple password. If you think about it, why would they do that? Are they trying to secure their malware payload so that it's safe? No, of course not. They're trying to get around secure email gateways. They're trying to make sure that the payload can't be inspected, it can't be blocked. And I think that kind of a low-hanging fruit, a password on top of it, will help in some cases. Any sophisticated inspection capability is going to crack right through that with no problem. But if they're really trying to get that low-hanging fruit, password protecting it might be a good idea. So this is talking about coronavirus as well. It's about 12 emails, and they all went to manufacturing and energy companies. And the thing that I really love about this one is that when you go to the page to pay your ransom, you are greeted by a very stressed out Rick and Morty and a time clock ticking down, telling you how much time you have left before your price doubles. You better get those Bitcoins quick. So something interesting I think about this one as well is that they're asking for $1,000, which in the world of commodity malware for ransomware, $1,000 is a lot of money. I would say that the average price of a large-scale commodity ransomware per host is $300. So saying that they want 1,000 and they're going to double it to 2,000 is pretty rare and unusual. And the other thing I like about NMT is that you can see on the right, they will chat with you. And that's something that actually is a perennial truth about ransomware over the years, which is that they generally have decent customer service. They will work with you, they will talk to you, they will walk you through the process. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know. There's a behavioral economics case to be made about the best thing to do with ransomware. Plan ahead is really my only advice for that. So Avedon is kind of a new one that we've seen recently that I really like as well. They're using a lot of different subject lines. So this was a campaign of about 3,000 messages, and I would say that they had 1,500 different subject lines. Things were all these kind of breathless, like, do you like this photo? Do you know him? Is this you? There was this sort of intrigue aspect and tone to the subject lines. We're typically seeing this again delivered via downloader as a second or third later stage payload. They've been sending Avedon June and July all over the place. We've seen campaigns of 1 million messages. We've seen them targeting verticals like manufacturing, education, healthcare. And the other thing I like about Avedon is that if you look at their logo, it's like a wizard hat kind of, and it has this sort of 80s metal wizard hat look to it. And they have chosen these caricatures of Harry Potter characters. So Hagrid, Dumbledore, and Padfoot Guy. And it's just this really weird cartoony situation where they want between $800 and $900. And if you don't pay, they double the price as well. So they're all sort of learning from each other. This is an interesting one too, I think, because if you look here, there's a nice QR code. You know, we are all so scared to click on QR codes and just tell everyone to never do it. But if you've got ransomware at that point, I mean, what's the worst that could happen beyond that? Just go ahead and click it. So run, it's the cops. This is NanoCore Rat, and it's been around for a long time. It does remote access, and we started to see it using these COVID-19 themes. In this particular example, it's talking about the Taiwan Centers for Disease Control, and it's got this branding and a header and a footer. Wow, so nicely done. It was hitting manufacturing pretty hard as well, and then it started getting really geo-targeted. And you can see here on these lures for NanoCore that it matched them up with kind of this police investigation theme. Italy, Dubai, and Uruguay, pulling those logos, putting them on nicely. On 2 of them, we see that there are these sort of court order looking thumbnails at the bottom. 2 of them have delightful social media icons for LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube of the police department. And then on UAE and Uruguay, we see that they've put this kind of fake signature of the police that does not match the text name, but is the signature on both of those. So something that we've realized for sure is that these threat actors are operationalized to the point where they probably do have somebody who's responsible for putting together graphics, doing a little bit of design, thinking about how it looks, finding the logos and putting them on, and putting these dates. I noticed 5th of May, 8th of May, and 3rd of May, all at 11 a.m. So there's a lot of legal proceedings that you're needed at. And also Italy is interesting because it's leveraging the pandemic theme with the lawyer appear for court theme. So they're just kind of smashing it all together, which is something that we've seen with COVID-19 in general. They will just smash it on top of the old stuff that they had before, where it might say previously you have an unpaid invoice. We've literally seen things that say you have an unpaid COVID-19 invoice. Just throw it in there and hope for the best with some of these campaigns. So we're moving on to the chickens. So this is what I imagine it looks like in Eastern Europe, Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, Poland, Czechoslovakia, where these threat actors work. We've determined that a lot of them do have offices. They go and work Monday through Friday, 9-to-5 jobs. I just assumed it looked like this, maybe. One thing we do know per the indictment of Fin7 at the end of last year is that they are using Jira. So it is much more like a regular software engineering job than maybe some of the cyber criminals think they're getting into. They're still having to deal with Jira and you cannot escape it. So we started seeing a particular actor hitting fast food. They were hitting every fast food restaurant you could possibly think of. If it's a national chain, we saw activity at the fast food restaurants. If it had a value meal, they were going for it. Just Monday through Friday, hitting those fast food chains. And one of the reasons fast food chains are attractive is because oftentimes they have card readers that have broken chip readers, meaning that you have to swipe. Another thing that's attractive about a fast food restaurant is that they do lots and lots of transactions all day for very small amounts of money. So you have this huge bank of credit card numbers that don't need a chip present that you can then sell, leverage, anything you want. But they're really targeting these fast food restaurants, many of which have broken chip readers. So then they started narrowing their focus down to a couple of smaller fast food restaurants. And, I work with a team. They said, hey, what's going on with that fast food actor? Are they doing anything? And researchers said, yeah, it's Wednesday. I said, okay, what does that mean? And he said, well, it's 99-cent hot dog day, Sherrod. And I was like, okay, I'm not as deep in this trench as you are, clearly. And so what he explained to me is that this particular fast food restaurant has a 99-cent special 5 days of the week, Monday through Friday, and Wednesdays are 99-cent hot dog day. And Wednesdays are 99-cent hot dog day, and also the day that this actor hits this particular fast food restaurant the hardest, with the highest volumes, and works really hard on this particular entity. This researcher also told me about all of the franchisees. He looked at their Facebook pages. He found out where they lived. He looked at where they had the most locations. He understood how their supply chain worked. He understood what kind of specials they have, all of these different things. I thought, wow, you've really dug deeply into these targets. And then we started looking more. And that particular actor started narrowing their focus, not just to fast food, but to fast food chicken. And if you think off the top of your head, you can probably come up with 5, 10 fast food restaurants that specialize in chicken. Some of them have had violent fights over their chicken sandwiches in the past. So this threat actor went from general fast food, specifically these hot dog restaurants, and then really started focusing on restaurants that specialize in chicken. Okay, so this was weird. We watched this for a few months, and then they pivoted again, and they started hitting chickens. Not chickens with 5G implants or something like that, but literally poultry providers, poultry farms. And I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm about 45 minutes away from Gainesville, Georgia, which is the poultry capital of the world. That's true. And they started hitting poultry farms in the Southeast and one in the Northeast. That seemed weird, but there was a chicken connection. And we started to sort of figure out that this threat actor had worked so hard to understand these fast food restaurants and their businesses that they're doing essentially a supply chain attack where they're able to see what the fast food restaurants do, what they're ordering, where they're putting their money, and they figured that the poultry restaurants were the best, or the poultry providers were the best place to go next. Because if they can get in between a large transaction of one of these restaurants ordering raw poultry, that could be $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 orders for all of those fast food chains, which then made sense to me why my researcher understood so much about these restaurants. He's essentially doing the same thing that the threat actors are doing, understanding the business, knowing who handles cash, knowing who can do accounts payable and receivable, understanding the names and personnel involved, understanding who these people are, understanding what they do, all of these different things. The threat actors are doing the same. So the poultry providers, then they started hitting only two VARs. A VAR is a value-added reseller. You've probably worked with one in the past, like CDW or SHI. They sell software licenses, hardware, services. They all bundle it together, and they usually sell those to large enterprise when they need to order, say, 1,000 laptops for their workforce. So they were hitting two VARs. One of those VARs happened to be very famous for its remote desktop support software. So you would buy, like this 1U server, for example, you buy 20 of those, and you would get a bundle with that of remote desktop support, and it would come with software pre-installed. So as you can see, the threat actor is very smart. They start off looking at fast food, going to chicken fast food, going to the chicken producers, the poultry producers that supply the fast food, and then going to these VARs that supply the computer licensing and the hardware for some of these poultry restaurants in an attempt to get into every single piece of this supply chain and siphon out money everywhere they possibly can. Another thing that's cool about the VAR is that if they get into that remote desktop software before it's even shipped out, they're already inside those enterprises in the data centers, and they can just maintain that access persistently, and they don't have to do much more work. So to wrap up, I want to talk about a threat to you. Does everyone know what OSINT is? Of course you do. So here we have an email that says, please find attached the OSINT dashboard for week 27. And it's got a link in it that allows you to click through to SharePoint to see the OSINT dashboard for that week, which supposedly comes from the European Banking Federation. So please don't print this email without considering the environment. And how many of these do we get a day, a week? We get the FBI flash reports. We get all this stuff from CISO. We get all of these threat intelligence reports sent to us in email. And this particular lore was only sent to people who had information security, cybersecurity, and software engineering titles. It was about 400 messages, and it was exclusively sent to people who had some kind of security or deeply technical access capability. So they're definitely targeting you in your role as well. And I think that that's really important to keep an eye out for, is you are a fantastic target because of the access that you have and because maybe you're really interested in OSINT dashboards. So that is all the time that I have. Thank you so much for joining me. Add me on Twitter, send me a picture of your threat that you're going to put together, and let me know if you changed your mind after seeing some of that stuff. And I will stop sharing somehow.
That was awesome. I saw both a lot of comments on Twitter and Discord, as everybody was really excited to see that. Did not have any questions stick here in the GoToWebinar panel. So for those of you too shy to do it here, you can get Sherrod at the Discord Expert Speakers Track panel, and you can ask her yourself safely through the CLI.
Thank you, Bryson. Thanks, everyone. Have a great time.
Up